Section 10.5 is continuing on with the unit circle. So far we have only worked in quadrants 1, so now we're going to expand our knowledge to quadrants 2, 3, and 4. So if you think about our unit circle here, and you think about it on the coordinate plane, we have only been dealing in quadrants 1. This will be quadrant 2, this is quadrant 3, and this is quadrant 4. As you know, all numbers in quadrant 1 are positive, positive. So far all of our ordered pairs have been positive, positive. But as we move into quadrant 2, we're going to realize, oh, over here, those are negative positives. Quadrant 3 are negative negatives, and quadrant 4 are positive negatives. So what that's going to do is we're going to have the exact same values, but our signs are going to change. So if we are in quadrant 2, our cosine is going to be negative, our sign is going to be positive, and then your tangent is when you divide those, so a negative divided by a positive is a negative. Quadrant 3, your cosine is negative, your sine is negative, because we're dealing here, this is negative, negative. Quadrant 2 here was negative, positive, so negative divided by negative is a positive for the tangent. Quadrant 4 is positive, negative, meaning our cosine is positive, our sine is negative, and then our tangent, when you divide those two, you still get a negative answer out. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at our unit circle. This is what we know so far. Okay, now let's continue around the circle and label some other things. If I take my first quadrant here, okay, and I continue to label around, this first chunk was 30 degrees. So if I'm at 90 and that was 30 degrees, 90 plus 30 means this is going to be 120. Okay, from 30 to 45 is 15 degrees, so that's going to make this 135. Okay, another 15 is going to make this 150 degrees. Okay, so it's the same thing, we're just going to kind of reflect it over. So now again at 180, this first chunk is 30 degrees, so 80 plus 30 is 210 degrees. Another 15 makes that 225. Another 15 from there makes that 240. Okay, moving on to our last quadrant, starting at 270, that first chunk is 30, so that's going to make this 300 degrees. Another 15 makes that 315, and the last one becomes 330 degrees. Okay, so now what we're going to realize is, oh, okay, we can count all of them, and they're the exact same values, only with the signs changed. So if you kind of think about this in terms of reflections, and if you have different colors or different whatever, it might help you. Okay, 30 degrees, okay, if you take that 30 degrees and you reflect it, okay, over the y-axis, okay, 30 degrees is going to be the same as 150 degrees. Okay, so it's going to have the exact same ordered pair, only the signs are going to change. So the ordered pair over here will be negative square root of 3 over 2 positive 1/2. So the exact same, only with the sign changed. Okay, now if you were to take that same 30 degrees and this time reflect it over the x-axis, that's going to land down here at 210. Now it's going to be the exact same ordered pair, but now everything is negative because it's negative, negative down here. So that's going to give me negative square root of 3 over 2, negative 1/2. Okay, because we were positive, negative over here. Now if we go into the fourth quadrant, we know this is positive, negative. And if I take that 210 and I reflect it, that's going to land over here on my 330, which means my ordered pair again is the same, the square root of 3 over 2, but this time my sign is negative, so it's going to be negative 1/2. Okay, so far we know 30, 150, 210, and 330 are the same. We can do that with all of these. Okay, so if I go ahead and I take, I'm going to need a different color here. Hold on one sec for me, sorry. So if I go ahead and I take, let's do these in blue. So if I go to my 45 degrees and I take that and I reflect that over, that's going to go ahead and land here on my 135. If I reflect that over, that's going to land on my 225, and I reflect that over, that's going to land on my 315. So all of the middles are the same, which is nice because they also end in 5. Okay, and then hopefully if we do the same thing, how about let's grab red. Okay, 60 degrees. If I reflect that over, that's going to land on 120. If I reflect that all the way down, that's going to be the same as 240. And I reflect that over, and that's going to be the same as 300. Okay, and it's going to follow the same pattern for the ordered pairs as the 30 did. I just didn't rewrite them. If you want to rewrite all of them, that is absolutely fine, okay? Or find a picture on the internet with those filled in, okay? But you're going to have to do this from memory, so the less you kind of do now, I think, the better. Okay, so let's answer some of these questions. Example A says, is sine of 172 positive or negative? Okay, so 172. So if I think about where 172 is, that's going to have to go ahead and land me somewhere in this chunk right here. Okay, well, sine in that quadrant is the y-coordinate, so the y-coordinate in that quadrant is negative. So this is going to be negative. Example B says cosine of 285, so you want to go find your quadrant. 285 would be somewhere over here because we start at 270 and end at 360. This is the fourth quadrant. The cosine over here is positive. Okay, so my answer here will be positive. Okay, example C. So example C says sine of 210. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to find myself at 210 degrees right here. 210 is an orange line, which is the same thing as my 30 degrees. So that takes me over to my 30 degrees right here. The sine is the y-coordinate, so my sine at my 30 is a half. Example D says 315. So I'm going to find 315 right here. I've got a little box around it. I know things are getting messy. So 315, that's a blue line. So that's the same thing as my 45 up here. So the tangent of all 45 degrees is 1. Okay, now what's tricky is now that I'm in this bottom quadrant at 315, I have a plus and a minus, which means mine is going to be negative. Ha, and we forgot that in example C. Because I was in the third quadrant, everything in there is negative, so that really should have been negative a half. Sorry about that. Okay. Example E says sine of negative 30. So remember that negatives go down, or they go backwards. So negative 30 winds me right here at 330. The sine here, okay, this is an orange one, so the sine is the y-coordinate, which is a half, but because I'm in the fourth quadrant, the sign is negative, so this should be negative 1/2. Example F is the cosine of negative 210. Okay, so negative 210, think about where that's going to land you before I draw it. Negative 210, so if I go backwards in this direction, and I go, here's 90, here's another 180, so I need a negative 30. That's going to land me over here at 150. Okay, the cosine in this quadrant is positive, so I'm going to say, okay, that's positive. The cosine is the orange, which is the same thing as the 30, so positive square root of 3 over 2. Now, do you really have to write positive? No, but it might remind you that you either have to write positive or negative because you need to be checking your signs on each one. So maybe that's a good tool, okay, or good tip for you. Example G says tan of negative 300. So again, negative is going to go backwards. 300 is going to land me all the way up here at 60 degrees. Okay, so I'm up here at positive 60. Okay, first quadrant, everything is positive. The tangent of 60 is the square root of 3. And example H, cosine of 495. Remember, when it's over 360, you need to subtract that. So that gives me 135 degrees. Okay, 135 degrees is this middle one over here. So I've got 135 and this big square over here. Okay, it asks me for the cosine. The cosine in that quadrant is positive, and because it's the middle one, it should be the square root of 2 over 2 because it's the same thing as a 45. Okay, so a lot of things to keep in mind here. So just bear with you and you will be just fine. We'll take things slow. We'll do a lot of other stuff. Okay, then example I, cosine of 570. Again, you want to subtract 360, leaving you with 210 degrees. Okay, 210 is back down here. Okay, cosine in this quadrant is negative, and it is the same thing as a 30, so the cosine is the square root of 3 over 2. And then J is 660, so go ahead and subtract from 360. That leaves you with 300. 300 lands me down here. That is a red line, which means it's the same thing as a 60 degree. So I need the sine, but the sign in the fourth quadrant is negative. So that's going to give me negative, and it said sine, which is the y-coordinate, so the square root of 3 over 2. Okay, so again, a lot of stuff I know. It kind of looks crazy at this point. So hopefully you can follow along, but please, please be writing down questions so we can go over this. Okay. To keep on comparing, I'm going to just start here with a fresh unit circle and kind of go from here because we don't really need to know exactly what things are. We're just comparing the signs at this point. So in example K, I'm looking at the sign of 60. Okay, so I'm just going to put an X marks the spot. So here's 60. I want to know if that is the opposite of the sign of 120. So here are my two spots I'm looking at. Okay, so it says sine of 60 equals, and then there's a little negative in front of that sign. So the real question is, are those opposites? Okay, well, if I look at the signs are the y coordinates where both of my x's are. I can see that they're the reflection of each other, so I know they're the same primary angle, and both y coordinates here are positive. So this answer is no, they are actually the same. Okay, because it asks if it's opposites, the answer is no because they are the same. Okay, so example L, okay, this time I'm going to look at 45, okay, and I'm looking at the cosine, so I know the cosine of 45 is positive, and then it says opposite cosine of negative 45. So negative 45 means I'm going to be down here, and again I'm looking at my cosine here, which is positive. Again, the negative out front means are these opposites? In fact, they're both the middle, which means they're the same primary angle, and the cosines here are the x coordinates, so these are actually the same because they are both positive here. Example M wants us to take a look at 30. So there's my 30 and my 210. Okay, now this one just says, are these the same? So notice the difference between KL and then M. M does not have a negative out sign out front, which means are these the same? Okay, well the sign in the first quadrant is positive and the sign in the third quadrant is negative. So this answer is no, because they are actually opposite. So I can see how you may find this confusing. You just have to think about what they're asking and then what the answer is, okay, and answer appropriately. Don't go too fast on these. Okay, and then example N says cosine of 45, so here's 45, and sine of 225. Okay, are they the same? Okay, there's no negative sign, so it says are the same. So the cosine in the first quadrant is positive, as we can see, and then the sine in the third is negative. So are they the same? Absolutely not. They are actually opposites. Okay, so please write down some questions. I know we're getting a little bit more involved, but the unit circle is fun. So bring questions and we'll go over them tomorrow.